If a 5-year-old tells you someone is crying in the storm, you listen. That's what Sarah Holloway would say now. But back then she did what most parents would do. She smiled, reassured her child, and blamed it on the wind. She hadn't seen the fear in his eyes. Not really. She hadn't realized that on that particular night something ancient and powerful had stirred in the heart of her son. Something not even a hurricane could silence. And by the time she understood, it was almost too late. The sky over Maple Street was splitting in half. Thunder boomed like the crack of Judgment Day, shaking the windows in their frames. Rain pelted the roof in thick, angry waves. Outside, the trees danced like skeletons caught in a wild sermon. And inside their little blue house, 5-year-old Ethan Holloway stood barefoot on the living room carpet, his nose pressed to the window. He wasn't watching the storm, he was listening to it. "Mama," he whispered, tugging at her sweatshirt sleeve. "Do you hear that?" Sarah blinked, pulled from her paperback. She glanced at her son, his sandy hair sticking to his forehead, eyes wide, like he'd just heard a ghost whisper his name. "Hear what, baby? It's just the storm." She tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, still damp from her jog. Ethan shook his head, soft but firm. "No, Mama. Someone's crying. Someone's scared. Out there." She sighed, setting her book aside. "Ethan, honey, it's just the wind. Sometimes." "No." He pressed his ear to the glass. "That's not wind. That's someone." Sarah followed his gaze, but saw only pitch-black sky curtains of rain and the outline of their old oak tree swaying in protest. She knelt beside him, her tone gentle but final. "Sweetheart, I promise there's no one out there." Footsteps behind them. Michael entered the room, towel draped over his head, still drying off from his shower. "What's our little storm chaser up to?" he asked. "He thinks he hears someone crying outside," Sarah explained. Michael chuckled, ruffling Ethan's hair. "That's just the storm talking, buddy. Trees groaning, wind moaning. It can sound like anything if you listen hard enough." But Ethan didn't smile. He turned back toward the window and whispered, "What if it was me out there? What if I was scared and nobody came?" That question settled in the room like a stone in water. Michael and Sarah exchanged a look, a parent look, the one that said, "This is more than imagination." Still, logic won out. "If the storm stops by morning, we'll go check around," Michael promised. "But right now, it's too dangerous." Ethan nodded, but reluctantly, his tiny fists clenched by his sides. That night, while the rest of the neighborhood slept beneath a curtain of thunder and wind, Ethan stayed by the window, waiting. If stories like this move, you don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Heroes for Animals. Real stories, real bonds, real heroes. When Sarah padded into the living room just after dawn, barefoot and groggy, she froze. Ethan was still there, boots on, raincoat zipped, and in his hand his plastic flashlight shaped like a cartoon puppy. "It stopped," he said quietly, "the crying. But I think it's waiting for me now." The storm had passed. The sky was still gray, the kind of sleepy morning haze that smells like mud and wet pavement. Water pooled in the cracks of their driveway. Leaves blanketed the yard like a patchwork rug. Sarah knelt in front of her son. He looked older, not in years but in spirit, like someone who had heard something the world couldn't explain. "All right," she said softly, "let's go look." Ethan led the way, his boots squishing through the soaked grass. He walked past his swing set, past the old oak tree, and toward the overgrown lot behind their backyard, a place Sarah hadn't thought about in years. It used to be a neighbor's property, but the house had burned down when she was pregnant with Ethan. Nothing had been built since. Now it was a tangle of weeds and forgotten branches. "Ethan, there's nothing back here but—" He stopped. His little hand pointed, and Sarah saw it. A structure hidden beneath a mess of blackberry vines and toppled limbs. A doghouse. But not like one you'd buy at PetSmart. This one was handmade, years old. The wood was cracked, the roof half collapsed, and the doorframe had buckled under years of weather and neglect. And from inside, breathing, labored, shallow, real. Ethan stepped back, Sarah said quickly, reaching out. But he pulled away gently. "He's hurt, Mama. He's been waiting all night." She hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger. Wild animals, disease, bites. But the look on Ethan's face, it wasn't fear. It was recognition. Like he knew who was waiting in there. He crouched beside the opening and whispered, "Hey, buddy, it's okay. I heard you calling for help." The bushes rustled. Sarah's heart climbed into her throat. And then he emerged. A dog. Huge. A German shepherd. Soaked. Mud-stained. One front paw held awkwardly above the ground. ribs visible through a matted coat, fur tangled with thorns and dried blood. But the worst part wasn't the injuries. It was his eyes. They weren't wild. They weren't vicious. They were aware. They looked at Ethan like they'd been waiting for him, like they'd crossed 1,000 storms just to reach this moment. The dog didn't growl, didn't bark, didn't flinch when Ethan reached out a small hand and stroked the top of his head. He told me Ethan said, tears filling his eyes. He told me he was scared. Sarah felt her throat tighten. The German shepherd whimpered softly and lowered his massive head into Ethan's lap, his injured paw trembling. "We have to help him, Mama," Ethan whispered. "Okay," she said. It was the only thing she could say, because deep down she felt it too. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a reunion, but he didn't bark. He didn't snap or flinch or bare his teeth. Despite the mud caked around his muzzle, despite the tremor in his frame, and the torn pad on his front paw, he just leaned into the child's touch. And for reasons Sarah couldn't begin to explain, she let it happen. She let her 5-year-old son kneel in the wet grass, whispering soft words to a massive wounded German shepherd who had just crawled out of a broken doghouse like a ghost pulled from the dirt. "Ethan," she said finally, her voice low, unsure. "We need to be careful, honey. He's hurt and scared." But Ethan didn't move. "He's not scared anymore," he said, brushing away a tangle of wet fur from the dog's eyes. "He knows we came to help him." The dog shifted again, slowly, painfully, and took a single step toward Ethan, then another. Then with a heavy sigh, he rested his giant head against the boy's chest. Ethan's arms wrapped around him without hesitation. "I'm going to call you Buddy," he said, like it was the most natural decision in the world. "And I promise I'll take care of you now." Sarah blinked fast, trying to push the sting from her eyes. There was something about this moment, about the way the boy and the dog moved around each other, that made it impossible to look away. She'd never believed in fate. Not really. But she was watching something ancient and familiar unfold right in front of her, like it had always been meant to happen this way. Michael's voice broke the trance. "Sarah," he called from the backyard, pushing through the high grass. "Where are you guys?" "Back here," she called, her voice thick with emotion. When Michael appeared, his first instinct was panic. His eyes locked on the massive dog pressed against his son, and every parental alarm bell started going off. "Ethan, get away from that dog right now." "No, Daddy," Ethan said, calm as ever, his arms still around Buddy's neck. "He's not going to hurt me. He's just tired and sad." Michael froze. Buddy didn't snarl. He didn't bare teeth or posture. He didn't even look at Michael. He just let out a deep, exhausted breath and closed his eyes like he finally felt safe. Michael stepped forward slowly now, more curious than afraid. "Where did he come from?" he asked, crouching beside Sarah. "He was in that doghouse," she said quietly. Ethan heard him during the storm. Michael looked toward the collapsed shelter, then at the dog's emaciated frame, the injury on his paw, the way his ribs pressed against his skin. "This dog's been out here for days, maybe longer." Sarah nodded. Ethan was right. Someone left him. Ethan looked up. His eyes had that faraway expression again, one Sarah was starting to recognize. "He told me last night," Ethan said, "in my dreams. He said he was waiting for someone who would love him." Michael and Sarah exchanged a glance. There was no sarcasm, no play acting in Ethan's voice, just certainty. And the dog. He seemed to understand every word. They brought him to the house slowly. Buddy limped along beside Ethan, never pulling on the leash, never lagging behind. He moved like he understood exactly what was happening and exactly who he could trust. Ethan whispered to him the whole way, telling him about their backyard, their family, how he'd share his toys, and maybe some of his peanut butter crackers. Buddy listened. He actually listened. Once inside, Sarah grabbed the phone. They needed help. Medical help. She called their vet, Dr. Martinez, explaining the situation in a half-whisper, while Michael locked the doors and pulled the curtains. Ethan had already made Buddy a bed out of old towels and was offering him water in a cereal bowl with little dinosaurs printed on the rim. "Ethan," Sarah said gently, "we shouldn't feed him yet. Not until Dr. Martinez gets here." "But he's hungry, Mama," Ethan said. "He hasn't eaten in forever. He told me his tummy hurts." Sarah paused. "And let him give Buddy half his sandwich." Buddy ate slowly, carefully, as if not quite sure he was allowed. But the whole time his eyes never left Ethan's. Dr. Martinez arrived within the hour. She was in her 50s, wore sensible jeans and a Cubs cap, and had treated every pet Sarah had ever owned. She gave Ethan a warm smile and knelt beside Buddy with practiced calm. What she didn't expect, what no one expected, was how still Buddy remained during the exam. "This is remarkable," she said after several minutes. "He's malnourished, probably 25 pounds underweight. That paw is fractured and it's been untreated for weeks. But his temperament. She shook her head. I've never seen anything like it. Ethan sat beside Buddy the whole time, petting his back gently. They're bonded, Sarah said quietly. Dr. Martinez frowned. I need to ask you something important. Did you notice any old scars on his legs? Healed bones that feel uneven? Michael nodded. Yeah, his back left leg is weird. He has multiple signs of previous abuse, she said gravely. Old fractures, scar tissue, bite marks. This dog's been through something awful. Sarah's stomach turned. No collar, no microchip, no ID, Dr. Martinez added. Where exactly did you find him? In that old lot behind our house, Sarah said. In a collapsed doghouse. The vet nodded solemnly. I'll have to report this. Dogs don't end up like this by accident. Someone hurt him. Someone might come looking. Buddy lifted his head then and looked at Ethan. Ethan nodded like he understood a message no one else could hear. He says his name used to be something mean, Ethan said quietly. But he likes Buddy better, because Buddy means friend. Dr. Martinez stopped what she was doing. She looked at Ethan for a long time, then said something no adult had said to the child yet. What else does Buddy tell you? Michael and Sarah expected her to dismiss the boy's words, chalk it up to imagination. But she was serious. He says, he lived in a dark place, Ethan said, and there were other dogs, and a girl dog who got sick. The bad man didn't feed her, and she stopped eating. Buddy tried to share, but it wasn't enough. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. I know it sounds crazy, Ethan added, but when I close my eyes, I see it. The smells, the barking, the cages. Dr. Martinez sat back on her heels. I've been a vet for 25 years, she said, and I've learned not to ignore kids who understand animals better than we do. There's something happening here. She looked at Sarah and Michael. If you plan on keeping this dog, you need to be ready. People who abuse animals like this, they don't just walk away. And if Buddy escaped, they might want him back. Ethan looked up, his face full of fire. He's not going back, he said. I won't let that happen. That night, as the sky finally cleared and stars blinked through the clouds, Buddy lay curled at the foot of Ethan's bed. He didn't twitch. He didn't flinch at sudden sounds. He didn't check the door every 5 minutes. He just breathed. Slow, calm, steady. Like someone who had finally found where they belonged. And Sarah stood in the doorway, watching her son stroke the head of a dog that had once known only darkness. Welcome home, Buddy, she whispered. But deep in her chest, she felt that the story wasn't over. It had only just begun. The third time the truck showed up, it wasn't just watching, it was waiting. Sarah noticed it first, sitting at the kitchen table with her second cup of coffee. Outside the window, past the garden fence and the mailbox, the rusted red pickup sat motionless at the edge of the cul-de-sac. Same truck. Same dark-tinted windows. Only this time the driver wasn't hiding. He was leaning against the door, one boot on the gravel, smoking a cigarette like he had all the time in the world. Buddy saw him too, and everything changed. The dog's body stiffened, his ears pulled back, and he let out a low guttural growl unlike anything Sarah had heard before. Not fear, not panic. It was anger. Michael, she called. He came jogging in expecting a spilled drink or a loose faucet. Instead, he found Sarah frozen in place, and Buddy pacing near the window, growling at the man on the street. Michael followed their gaze, his fists clenched. The truck, the man, he was just there, standing like he belonged. Like he'd been there before. They didn't call the police immediately. It felt premature somehow. The man hadn't done anything illegal yet, but the air inside the house had changed. Buddy paced the living room for hours, ears flicking with every sound. Ethan stayed close to him all day. He could tell something wasn't right, even if no one explained it. Buddy says he knows that man, Ethan whispered. He says the man used to yell a lot. He hit him, and he hit the girl dog too. Sarah sat down beside her son, heartbreaking. What happened to the girl dog? She got sick. She didn't want to fight. Buddy tried to share his food with her, but the man, he got mad. Ethan's voice got smaller. He placed his hand on Buddy's shoulder. He hit Buddy so hard he couldn't walk for a week. Sarah blinked back tears. How do you know this, sweetheart? Ethan looked up at her serious. Because Buddy remembers, and now I do too. That night, Buddy didn't sleep. Neither did Sarah. She stood in the hallway, arms wrapped around herself, watching Buddy curl around Ethan's bed like a lion guarding a cub. She didn't want to admit it aloud, but she could feel it too. Something was coming, and it wasn't just about a lost dog anymore. It was about what that dog knew. The next day, they got the knock. 3 short, sharp raps on the front door, firm, deliberate, not tentative, like a neighbor asking for sugar. Michael answered it and came face to face with the man in the truck. He was tall, too tall, with sun-damaged skin and eyes that didn't look at people just through them. He had a long scar down his right hand, and the stink of cigarettes and motor oil clung to him like a second skin. "I'm here for my dog," he said without introduction. Michael didn't blink. "Excuse me. You got him. Big German Shepherd, black and tan, name's Rex." Michael's face hardened. "There's no dog here by that name." The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Maybe not to you, but I raised that dog. Trained him myself. He's mine." Michael stepped forward just enough to block the man's view inside. "Even if there was a dog like that here, you'd need to prove ownership papers, vet records, photos." The man snorted. "I don't need papers. I know my own damn dog, and he knows me." Behind Michael, Sarah had already moved into position between the living room and the front door. Ethan sat on the couch. Buddy beside him, ears flattened, body trembling. But not from fear, from memory. "Rex," the man barked, raising his voice. "Come on, boy, get over here." Buddy whimpered, but didn't move. "See," the man said. "He knows his name." Ethan stood. "No," he said. "His name isn't Rex. It's Buddy. He told me." The man laughed. "Kid dogs don't talk." "Yes, they do," Ethan replied. "You just didn't listen." The man's face darkened. Michael didn't move, but his voice dropped an octave. "You need to leave. Now. If I don't, then you'll deal with more than just a dad protecting his son. You'll deal with the law." The man hesitated just for a second. But in that second, Buddy moved. He rose from the couch and walked to the doorway, standing tall beside Ethan. Not cowering, not shaking, but steady, unyielding. "Rex," the man said again, louder now. "Get over here now, or you know what happens." Buddy didn't move. "See," Ethan said, "he's not scared of you anymore, because he's not yours anymore." The man took a step forward. Michael matched it. They stared each other down, two men standing on opposite ends of something neither could undo. "I'm calling the police," Sarah said from behind. That made him pause. His bravado cracked just slightly. "Wait," he said, tone shifting. "Let's not make this messy. I just want what's mine." "You lost that right the day you heard him," Sarah snapped. The man opened his mouth, but another voice cut in. "You should go now." It wasn't Michael. It wasn't Sarah. It was Ethan. All 5 years old and standing barefoot on the hardwood floor. And the way he said it, like someone older, like someone wiser. The man stared at the boy, then at the dog. And for the first time since arriving, his eyes changed. Not softer, just less certain. He muttered something under his breath, turned on his heel, and stalked back to the truck. Michael shut the door and locked it. Twice. Buddy didn't bark. He didn't even growl. He just stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. Ethan knelt beside him, stroking his fur. "He says it's not over," Ethan whispered. "He says the man will come back." Sarah crouched next to them. "Then we'll be ready." Buddy looked her straight in the eye. And Sarah understood something she hadn't before. This dog wasn't just a survivor. He was a witness. And someone wanted that witness silenced. They filed a report that night. Officer Johnson, tall, calm, and clearly a dog guy, came to the house. He listened carefully, took notes, and photographed Buddy's injuries with gentle hands. "This guy's got priors," he said. "Animal cruelty, illegal breeding. We've never pinned anything big on him, but he's on our radar." "What about the truck?" Michael asked. "We'll monitor it, but for now, keep your doors locked. Cameras on, and call us if he even drives by." Before leaving, Officer Johnson crouched beside Ethan. "You said Buddy told you things. Can you tell me what the man looks like?" Ethan closed his eyes, placed his hand on Buddy's back. "He's tall, smells like smoke and metal, and he has angry eyes, eyes that hurt. His hand has a scar from when the girl dog bit him." Johnson nodded slowly. "I'll run it. See what turns up." As he stood, Buddy walked to him and gently nudged his hand. The officer scratched behind his ears. "You're a good boy," he said. "We'll keep you safe." Buddy licked his hand once, then returned to Ethan's side. That night, Ethan and Buddy slept in the living room. Together. Sarah sat on the stairs watching them, and knew without doubt that their home had changed forever. Buddy had come out of the storm looking for help. But now, he was family. And someone was willing to risk everything to take him back. But they were willing to risk even more, to protect him. Buddy didn't bark that night, but he didn't sleep either. He lay at the base of the stairs, ears alert, body tense, like he was waiting for something only he could feel. The hallway light stayed on, casting long, quiet shadows that flickered across the living room floor. Michael checked the locks for the third time. Sarah stared at the security monitor. Everything looked normal. But it didn't feel that way. Upstairs, Ethan tossed under his covers. He wasn't sick, not physically, but something kept pulling at him from inside his dreams. He saw cages, too many. He saw rusted water bowls and old towels covered in blood. And he saw Buddy. Not the Buddy who chased tennis balls in the backyard. Not the one who licked peanut butter off Ethan's fingers. This Buddy was smaller, skinnier, covered in cuts. He was curled up in a corner, nose tucked into his legs, shaking. And behind him was a girl dog, brown and white with drooping ears. She wouldn't lift her head, wouldn't eat, wouldn't respond when Buddy nudged her. Ethan woke up crying. Buddy was already beside the bed, as if he'd known. The next morning, Sarah found Ethan sitting in the kitchen in his pajamas, drawing with a red crayon on the back of an old grocery list. The picture showed a barn, a red one, a crooked roof, and inside cages, a man with a scar, and a small dog lying on its side. "Sweetie," she asked gently, "what is that?" "That's the barn," Ethan said without looking up. "The one Buddy remembers. He says it's behind a gas station, with a big billboard." Michael leaned in. "Do you remember what the billboard said?" Ethan nodded. It had a cow on it, with sunglasses. Michael and Sarah exchanged a look. There was a gas station like that, out on Highway 9. Dr. Martinez came by that afternoon to check on Buddy's paw. It was healing slowly but surely. His ribs were less pronounced now, and his coat was beginning to shine. "You've done wonders with him," she told Sarah. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Sarah hesitated, then told her everything. The man, the truck, the confrontation, Ethan's dreams, the barn. Dr. Martinez didn't roll her eyes, didn't laugh. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully. "I've seen stranger things in animals," she said, "and children are tuned differently, especially ones like Ethan. High empathy, sharp instincts. Sometimes they can read things we miss." Michael frowned. "Are you saying you believe him?" "I'm saying I believe Buddy," she said. "And if Buddy trusts Ethan, that's enough for me." She paused. "But if what Ethan saw is real, those other dogs might still be there, and they might not have time." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep again. He curled up on the couch with Buddy staring out the window. "Do you think they're still in the barn?" he asked. Buddy licked his cheek tail, thumping once. "He says yes," Ethan whispered. "He says 3. One of them is really hurt, and they don't have food." Sarah had just turned off the hallway light when the doorbell rang. It was almost midnight. Michael grabbed the bat from the closet and looked through the peephole. "Officer Johnson." Michael opened the door immediately. "Sorry for the late hour," the officer said, stepping inside. "I ran the description your son gave us. Man with a scar, cigarette smell, angry eyes. We have a guy in our files, Earl Carson. History of dogfighting, animal cruelty, even gambling charges. But we've never pinned anything serious." Sarah's stomach sank. "That's him." "He's bad news," Johnson said. "And if what your son says is true, this might be bigger than we thought." The next day, everything changed. Johnson returned with a woman in a blazer and hiking boots. She was tall, in her 40s, and introduced herself with a warm smile. "I'm Dr. Amanda Chen," she said. "I'm an animal behaviorist. Dr. Martinez asked me to come. She thinks your dog might be able to help us identify an illegal dogfighting location." Buddy stood next to Ethan, alert but calm. Dr. Chen sat on the floor, intentionally not making eye contact, and waited. After a few minutes, Buddy walked to her, sat down, and placed a paw on her knee. She blinked. "He just told me yes, didn't he?" She smiled. Ethan nodded. He remembers everything. Dr. Chen spent 2 hours at the house. She asked Ethan to describe everything he'd seen in his dreams. He told her about the barn, the layout, the smell, the way Buddy used to sleep near the wall to avoid being stepped on. He says there were fights every Friday, lots of yelling, and money. Dr. Chen took notes, then said something Sarah hadn't expected. "If we can verify this barn exists, we might finally have enough for a raid." Michael stepped forward. "What happens if you don't?" "They'll move the dogs, or worse." The next morning, Sarah woke up before the sun. Buddy was pacing. He moved from window to window, growling low. Ethan sat up in bed. "He's here," Ethan whispered. Sarah ran downstairs. The truck was back. This time it was closer, parked at the bottom of their driveway. The man wasn't inside. He was on foot, somewhere nearby. Michael grabbed the phone. "I'm calling Officer Johnson." Sarah locked the back door. Buddy growled again, this time louder, deep, protective. Then came the sound. Snip, like wire cutters. Michael froze. He's trying to cut through the fence. They heard footsteps, fast but careful, moving across the side yard. Buddy stood at the top of the basement stairs, muscles rigid, tail raised. Ethan stood beside him. He's coming in, Ethan said. He's got something metal. And Buddy says he's not just here for him anymore. He wants me too. The back door handle jiggled. Then again. Then, click. The door opened. Sarah grabbed Ethan. Michael stepped in front of them. Buddy stood on the last step growling. The man entered slowly, confident, a tool belt on his hip and a crowbar in his hand. Where's the damn mutt, he growled. Buddy didn't bark, didn't charge. He stood his ground, blocking the stairs like a soldier holding the line. Move, the man said. I'm not playing. But Buddy didn't move. He lowered his body ready to defend, not with teeth, but with presence. The man stepped forward. Buddy stepped to the left, blocking again. The intruder hissed, "You stupid animal. You know what happens when you say no." He raised the crowbar, and then sirens. Loud, fast, getting closer. Officer Johnson's voice boomed from outside. "Police, step outside with your hands up." The man cursed under his breath. "This isn't over," he growled at Buddy, but his eyes shifted. He knew it was over, at least for now. They arrested him that night, found bolt cutters in his truck, Buddy's old chain, and a list of addresses including theirs. "He was planning this for days," Johnson said. "But you bought us enough time to make it stick." Dr. Chen was there too. She looked at Buddy and shook her head in amazement. He didn't fight, he didn't bite, he protected. Ethan knelt beside his friend. Buddy says the bad man is scared now. But he's not, because he knows he's not alone anymore. Sarah watched them, boy and dog, side by side in the quiet aftermath. They weren't just survivors. They were witnesses. And now, they were defenders. Buddy wasn't the same dog anymore. Not because his limp was gone, though it was. Not because his coat was shiny again, or because he learned how to high-five with his paw on command. He was different because something in his eyes had changed. He wasn't waiting for danger anymore. He was watching over his family. And for Ethan, that meant everything. The break-in made local headlines even without all the details. A man arrested for trespassing and attempted theft, allegedly trying to reclaim a dog he'd abused. Officers found bolt cutters and a crowbar in his truck, enough to get him charged with attempted burglary. But behind the public headlines, something much larger was building. The location Ethan had drawn in his dreams, the barn behind the gas station on Highway 9, was real. Authorities searched it after obtaining a warrant, and what they found left even seasoned officers speechless. 3 dogs, one with a shattered leg, all emaciated, all terrified, all still in cages. The space matched Ethan's descriptions down to the last detail: metal bowls, dirty hay, even the billboard with the cow wearing sunglasses just a few yards down the road. "This is going to trial," Officer Johnson told the family 2 weeks later, "and it's bigger than we thought. Multiple suspects, multiple locations. You helped open a door we've been trying to break down for years." Sarah looked down at Buddy lying peacefully at Ethan's feet. "We didn't do it alone," she said. "He did." That night after Ethan went to bed, the adults sat around the kitchen table. Dr. Martinez and Dr. Chen were there, along with a woman from the district attorney's office, Amanda Torres. She had a folder full of photos and paperwork, and a face that showed she'd seen more cruelty than she cared to admit. She got right to the point. "We want Buddy to be an exhibit in court." Sarah stiffened, like an object. "No, not like that." Amanda's voice softened. "We want the jury to see what rehabilitation looks like. We want them to look in Buddy's eyes and see what was stolen from him and what love gave back." Sarah looked to Dr. Chen, who nodded slowly. "It could make a difference." Amanda continued, "We'd also like Ethan to testify." Michael sat forward. "He's 5. "I know," Amanda said gently, "and we'd never push. But the way he describes Buddy, it's unlike anything I've seen. He gives these animals a voice, and that matters." Sarah said nothing. She was still trying to picture her little boy on a witness stand. They called it the Highway 9 cruelty case. 8 suspects, 17 dogs. Charges ranging from animal abuse to illegal gambling. Ethan didn't understand all the grown-up words. But he understood this Buddy used to live in a dark place. And if people didn't speak up, the dogs still trapped in places like that wouldn't get out. So when Sarah asked him how he felt about going to court, he answered with the simplicity of someone who sees only right and wrong. "If Buddy goes, I go," he said. "He needs someone to help him speak." The courthouse was big and echoey. Everything smelled like cleaning spray and old coffee. Ethan held Buddy's leash with one hand and Michael's fingers with the other. People stared. Not at him, at Buddy. The once wounded German shepherd walked with confidence, now his head high, his gait strong. His presence in the hallway stopped conversations, turned heads, and pulled phones from pockets. Sarah had dressed Ethan in his nicest clothes, khakis, a navy sweater, clean sneakers. But it was Buddy who wore the real badge of honor, his collar engraved with a single word: friend. They sat through 2 days of trial. The prosecution showed videos recovered from the property, fights, bets, dogs crying behind fences. Several jurors cried openly. One had to leave the room. On the third day, it was Ethan's turn. He walked into the courtroom holding Buddy's leash, small and determined. The judge, a white-haired woman with tired eyes, smiled gently as he approached the witness chair. Buddy lay beside him, calm as ever. Amanda Torres approached slowly. "Hi, Ethan. Can you tell us your name?" He nodded. "Ethan Holloway." "How old are you?" "5.5", he said proudly. "And who's this beside you?" "This is Buddy. He's my best friend." The room leaned in as Amanda asked more questions. "How did you meet Buddy?" "He called to me during a storm. I heard him crying." "Was he hurt?" "Yes, but not just outside. His heart was hurt too." "And how did you help him?" "I listened," Ethan said simply. "And I stayed. He wasn't alone anymore." Amanda paused, her voice catching slightly. "Ethan, some people believe that dogs who've been hurt can't be trusted, that they should be put down. What do you think?" Ethan frowned. "Being hurt doesn't make you dangerous. It just means you need someone to help you feel safe again." He reached down and scratched Buddy's ear. Buddy used to be scared of people, but now he protects them. The defense attorney stood next, a thin man with expensive shoes and a skeptical tone. "Ethan," he said, "how do you know what Buddy is feeling?" Ethan didn't flinch. "He shows me." "Shows you?" "In pictures. And sometimes feelings. Like when you know your mom is sad, even if she's smiling." "Can Buddy show you everything?" "No," Ethan said. "Just the stuff that really matters." "And what did he show you about the man who hurt him?" Ethan looked toward the back of the room where the defendant sat. His voice didn't change, but something in the air shifted. "He said the man made the girl dog cry. And when she stopped eating, he hit Buddy for trying to share his food." The attorney paused. "How would you know that?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked down at Buddy, then back up. "Because love remembers everything," he said softly. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes. The defense attorney sat down, and Amanda walked back up. "Ethan, one last question. Do you think Buddy is still scared?" "No," he said, "because he knows I'm here." "And are you scared?" Ethan looked down at Buddy, then at the jury. "Not anymore, because Buddy's here for me too." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Cameras flashed. Microphones were extended. But Ethan didn't stop for any of them. He had one hand on Buddy's back, and one thing on his mind. "Can we go home now?" he asked. Michael smiled. "Yeah, bud, let's go home." The verdict came 3 days later. Guilty, on all counts. The barn was condemned. The defendants were sentenced. And every dog rescued from the property was placed into rehabilitation, not euthanized. Because of Buddy. Because of Ethan. Because they had shown what healing looked like. That weekend, Sarah found Ethan building something in the backyard with Michael. Planks of wood, paint cans, nails. "What are you guys working on?" she asked. Ethan looked up, beaming. "A new doghouse," he said. "Not because Buddy needs one, but because he deserves one." He held up a painted sign. "Welcome home, Buddy." When it was done, Buddy sniffed the new house, circled it once, and then laid down outside the entrance between it and the back door of the house. "He doesn't want to be far from us," Ethan said. Sarah smiled. "Of course not," she said. "He's our guardian now." That night, Ethan asked if they could sleep in the backyard. Buddy's first night in his new house shouldn't be alone. So they did. Sleeping bags, hot cocoa, marshmallows roasted over the grill. Buddy didn't go inside the house once. But he never left Ethan's side either. And under the stars, Sarah finally understood. Buddy hadn't just found a home. He'd found his purpose. And somehow in the quiet magic between a child and a broken dog, the world had changed. By fall, the house on Maple Street had grown quieter. No more midnight pacing. No more strange trucks down the block. No more looking over their shoulders. It had been 3 peaceful months since the trial, since the guilty verdict that put several of Buddy's abusers behind bars. Ethan had returned to being a regular 5-year-old. Sort of. He still talked to Buddy like he was a person. Still claimed the dog showed him things in his dreams. But now those dreams were bright. Open fields, long walks, bacon, always bacon. Buddy dreams about breakfast like Dad dreams about baseball. Ethan would joke, sending Michael into laughter and Sarah into eye rolls. They had found their rhythm again. And for a while it seemed like the worst was behind them. But storms have a funny way of circling back when you least expect it. It started on a Thursday night. Late October. The air had turned crisp and dry, the smell of distant bonfires and carved pumpkins drifting through the neighborhood. Sarah had just tucked Ethan into bed, reading their usual 2 chapters of Charlotte's Web, when she noticed Buddy acting strange. He didn't curl up at the foot of Ethan's bed like usual. He paced upstairs, downstairs, to the back door, to every window. His nose twitched. His ears flicked toward sounds only he could hear. Michael looked up from his laptop on the couch. "Buddy, okay." Sarah shrugged. "He's jumpy. Maybe it's just a raccoon in the trash again." But when Buddy passed the hallway mirror, his reflection startled him just for a second. Then he growled, low, deep, not defensive. Warning. At 2:14 a.m., Sarah sat up in bed, heart pounding. She didn't know why at first. Then she realized Buddy wasn't in the room. That had never happened. She got up, tiptoed down the hall, and stopped when she saw light flickering from under Ethan's door. When she pushed it open, Ethan was awake. So was Buddy. The dog sat in front of the window, rigid as a statue. Ethan, sleepy but serious, sat cross-legged behind him. "Someone's outside," Ethan said without turning around. "Buddy says he's been coming back for 3 nights. Sarah's stomach dropped. "What do you mean coming back?" Ethan pointed out the window. "There," he whispered, "by the back fence." Sarah looked. At first, nothing. Just the yard, the garden, the swing set. Then, movement. Barely visible in the shadows. Someone crouching, watching the house. Her hands began to shake. "Stay here," she said. Michael was already halfway down the stairs with a flashlight and a baseball bat when she reached him. Buddy followed like a shadow, staying in front of Ethan, like a moving wall of muscle and instinct. They flipped on every light in the house, turned on the floodlights in the yard, and checked the monitors from their porch cameras. The figure ducked out of view too fast to get a clean shot, but the outline was enough. A man. Same build as Earl Carson, the original abuser. But Earl was in prison. So who was this Sarah called Officer Johnson at 2:30 a.m. He answered on the first ring. "Lock your doors, keep the lights on," he said. "I'll have a unit patrol your street tonight." Michael asked the question they were both thinking. Could this be connected to the case? "I don't know," Johnson admitted. "But people like Carson have friends, brothers, enablers, and they don't take kindly to folks who speak up." Buddy barked, then sharp and sudden, from upstairs. And this time it wasn't a raccoon. The next night, Sarah installed an extra deadbolt. Michael ordered new cameras from a home security app before his coffee had even finished brewing. And Buddy didn't sleep. Ethan didn't either. That evening, Ethan told Sarah something that made her blood run cold. "Buddy says the man isn't just watching anymore." She knelt beside him, heart in her throat. "What does that mean?" Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper. "He says the man wants to hurt us. Not just take him back. He's angry because we helped send the others to jail." Michael overheard and froze in the hallway. They had always believed Ethan's words. But now, with shadows at the fence and Buddy guarding every window, it wasn't just intuition. It felt like a countdown. The next night was the worst. Sarah had just turned off the kitchen lights when she heard it. Snip, snap, metal on metal. Wire cutters. Right outside the fence. Michael ran to the backyard door, peered through the blinds. Movement. Then the crunch of leaves. Footsteps. Fast. Deliberate. "Get upstairs," he shouted to Sarah. "Now!" She grabbed Ethan. Buddy moved before anyone else. He raced down the hall and planted himself at the base of the stairs. Guarding. Blocking. The sound of a doorknob jiggling. Then, click. The back door opened. Someone was inside. They could hear the footsteps. Not sneaky, not rushed. Just sure. This man wasn't here to steal a bike or grab a wallet. He had purpose. "Where's the damn mutt?" a voice called. Buddy growled low and deep from the staircase. Sarah held Ethan tight in the hallway upstairs, trying not to cry. "Police are on the way," Michael called out. "Leave now or you're going to jail." The man laughed. "By the time they get here, it'll be too late." The footsteps moved into the living room, then toward the stairs. "Come on, Rex," the man hissed. "I know you're here." He turned the corner and froze. Buddy stood there, still, solid, silent. No barking, no lunging. Just a wall of fur and muscle and memory. The man raised something metal, a flashlight, a bar. Didn't matter. Buddy didn't flinch. He took one step forward, then another. No growling now. Just purpose. The man hesitated. For the first time, he looked afraid. Outside, sirens wailed. Closer, louder. Headlights flashed across the windows. Police. Back up. The man turned. Too late. 2 officers burst through the front door and tackled him before he made it to the fence. Handcuffs, shouts, Miranda rights. Michael stood at the top of the stairs, Ethan in his arms. Buddy didn't move until Officer Johnson stepped inside. "Stand down, boy," he said gently. "You did good." Buddy's tail wagged once, and he laid down at the base of the stairs. Later in the kitchen, Officer Johnson told them everything. The man was Carson's brother. He had helped run the barn, supplied food, transported animals, cleaned up after fights. He'd been under investigation but vanished right after the trial. He blamed Ethan, blamed Buddy, and had been watching their house for weeks. Truth is, Johnson said, we only caught him because of Buddy. You'd have never known he was in the yard without that dog. Michael looked at his son, then at Buddy curled under the kitchen table. That's not a dog, he said. That's family. That night, they all slept in the same room. Ethan in the middle, Michael and Sarah on either side. Buddy at the foot of the bed, eyes half closed but still alert. "I'm not scared anymore," Ethan whispered before drifting off. "Why not?" Sarah asked softly. "Because Buddy says the bad men don't understand." "Understand what?" Ethan smiled sleepily. "That love is stronger than anything they've got." Sarah looked down at Buddy and felt a warmth deeper than any blanket. They had faced a second storm, and once again love held the line. The house had never felt safer. Not because of the cameras or the deadbolts or the new floodlights Michael installed along the fence. Not even because of the police car that now circled the block twice each night. It felt safe because of Buddy. He didn't act like a guard dog. He didn't patrol or bark at every sound. He simply existed in the quiet way that love does when it knows it's needed. And Ethan, Ethan had grown. Not taller, not older, but deeper. He still laughed at cartoons and refused to eat peas. But there was a look in his eyes now that even Sarah couldn't explain. He'd seen something, and now he carried something too. Thanksgiving was different that year. Instead of visiting Sarah's parents in Colorado like they usually did, they stayed home. Just the three of them, and Buddy, of course, eating turkey and mashed potatoes in pajamas while watching Charlie Brown Thanksgiving on TV. At one point, while Michael cleaned the dishes, Sarah found Ethan curled up in a blanket on the couch, Buddy's head in his lap. "He says this is his first real holiday," Ethan whispered. "The kind where no one's yelling." Sarah smiled. "He told you that?" Ethan nodded. "He says it feels like home." Buddy let out a long, peaceful sigh, then licked Ethan's fingers. Sarah took a mental snapshot of the moment. Because sometimes love doesn't knock on the door. Sometimes it limps out of a broken doghouse and finds you. 2 weeks later, the phone rang. It was Dr. Martinez, and she wasn't calling for a checkup. "Sarah," she said gently, "I have a favor to ask." Sarah sat down. "What kind of favor?" "There's another dog, female, maybe a year old. We think she came from the same network Buddy did. She was found abandoned behind a warehouse off Highway 10. Same signs, malnourished, scared, no chip." Sarah felt her chest tighten. Dr. Martinez continued, "We've been having a hard time placing her. She won't eat, won't look at anyone. But," she responds when she hears Buddy's name. Sarah blinked. "What?" She perks up, ears lift, tail twitches. It's like she remembers. "Wait, do you think she's the one, the girl dog?" "We don't know for sure," Dr. Martinez said, "but the signs line up. And if Buddy does know her, we need to try. We were hoping your family might be willing to foster her, just for a little while." Sarah and Michael talked that night after Ethan went to bed. He hadn't heard the conversation, but Buddy had. The moment the word foster was spoken, he tilted his head and wagged his tail. Michael laughed. "I guess we have our answer." The next morning, Sarah sat Ethan down. "There's a dog," she said. "She's hurt. She's scared. And they think Buddy might know her." Ethan's eyes lit up. "The girl dog." Sarah nodded. "It might be. Can we help her?" "Only if we're all okay with it," Sarah said. "It won't be easy." Ethan didn't hesitate. "We have room." He looked out the window toward Buddy's new blue doghouse. "Buddy says we already made room." Dr. Martinez brought her that afternoon. She was small, fragile, mostly white with patches of brown on her face and back. Her ribs were visible through her thin fur, and one of her back legs had been shaved from surgery. She didn't bark. She didn't growl. She just stared, like she wasn't sure if this was a dream or a trick. Buddy stood at the edge of the yard, tail wagging slowly. He didn't run to her. He didn't overwhelm her. He just stood there, patient, present, waiting. And then something incredible happened. She took one step forward, then another, until they were nose to nose. She let out the softest whimper. Buddy licked her cheek, and her tail wagged just once. But once was enough. They named her Hope. It was Ethan's idea. "She's not scared anymore," he said. "She just needed hope." For the first few days, she barely moved from the towel Sarah laid out in the laundry room. But Buddy visited every hour, bringing toys, treats, or just sitting beside her with the patience only a dog could understand. Ethan spent his afternoons reading to her. He didn't ask her to play, didn't ask her to move. He just read The Velveteen Rabbit, Winnie the Pooh, even a few pages from Buddy's favorite Clifford, the big red dog. On the fourth night, Hope curled up next to Buddy's bed. By the end of the week, she crawled into it with him. Christmas came quickly. Ethan insisted on getting stockings for both dogs. He wrote their names in glitter glue and hung them on the fireplace. Buddy's had a new squeaky toy. Hope's had a pink bandana and a tennis ball. She carried that ball with her everywhere for 2 full days like it was made of diamonds. She's smiling now, Ethan said one morning. Sarah looked down at the little dog curled up on the couch. And he was right. It was subtle, but it was real. The corners of her mouth lifted. Her eyes softened. It was a smile. One evening in late January, after Hope had been with them almost 6 weeks, Ethan had another dream. He saw a field. Bright, green, wide. Buddy was running. So was Hope. They weren't fenced, no chains, no cages. Just open air and sunshine. He woke up with tears on his cheeks. But they weren't sad. When Sarah asked what he'd dreamed, he said, she remembers now. Not the bad stuff, the good stuff. She remembers who she is. That weekend, Officer Johnson stopped by with a surprise. A certificate. Honorary Guardian Buddy the Brave. Signed by the local police chief. Ethan insisted it hang above Buddy's bed. He's not just our protector, Ethan explained. He protects everyone now. That night after dinner, Sarah found Ethan sitting on the back porch. Hope lay beside him, Buddy at his feet. What you thinking about? She asked, sitting beside him. Ethan looked up at the stars. Buddy says we're not done. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Not done. There are more dogs, he said. Still waiting, still scared. Sarah pulled the blanket tighter around his shoulders. We can't save everyone, sweetie. Ethan smiled. Maybe not, but we can save one more. He looked at Buddy. Right, boy, what's sooner so we're... Buddy wagged his tail once and rested his head in Ethan's lap. Hope pressed herself closer, and Sarah knew. This wasn't just a rescue story anymore. It was a mission, a ripple, a quiet revolution led by a boy who listened and a dog who never gave up. Spring came early that year. By the first week of March, daffodils were pushing through the frost, the trees along Maple Street were tinged with pale green buds, and the scent of rain lingered long after the clouds had moved on. Life in the Holloway home had settled into a new kind of normal. Ethan had started kindergarten. Sarah returned to freelance design work from home. Michael coached Little League again. And Buddy had found a rhythm. He greeted the school bus every afternoon like a soldier on duty, waited patiently during Ethan's bath time, and slept with one ear open near the front door every night. Hope followed him everywhere now, lighter on her paws, brighter in the eyes, no longer afraid of the broom or the doorbell. It was peace, a rare earned kind of peace, which is exactly why the next storm felt so wrong. It started with a knock. Late evening. Too late for packages, too polite for an emergency. Sarah opened the door to find a woman standing there in a navy blue coat with a Humane Society badge and a leather satchel slung over her shoulder. Mrs. Holloway, she asked. Sarah nodded. I'm Melanie Rivers, Regional Director of Rescue Services. May I come in? Michael appeared behind her. Is something wrong? Melanie hesitated. No, but something's come up, and we think your family and Buddy might be the only ones who can help. They sat around the kitchen table just like the night Dr. Chen came months ago. Melanie opened a folder and placed a photo on the table. A blurry image of a dog. Matted, thin, muzzle graying despite a young frame. He was dumped behind a warehouse in St. Paul last week, tied to a crate with no water. The rescue team says he wouldn't stop pacing. He didn't eat for 4 days. Sarah swallowed hard. Do you think? Melanie nodded. We know. He came from the same ring, the same network that hurt Buddy and Hope. He still had a tracking number burned into the inside of his ear. We cross-checked it with case files. He fought. A lot. Ethan sat quietly listening. Melanie placed another photo down. Same dog. This time lying in a crate with his eyes half closed. There's something different about him. He reacts when someone says Buddy's name. Buddy, who had been napping under the table, suddenly looked up. Melanie noticed. We need a breakthrough. We don't want to sedate him forever. He won't let anyone near. She looked at Ethan. At the risk of sounding strange, your family has a gift. And Buddy has a gift too. We're asking if you'd come to the shelter. Let them meet. The next morning they made the trip, 3 hours north on I-35. Ethan rode in the back with Buddy and Hope singing softly to them, while Sarah drove and Michael navigated. The shelter was quiet when they arrived. A renovated warehouse painted in soft grays and blues, with murals of smiling pets on the outer walls. Melanie met them at the entrance and led them inside. Room 3B. That's where he was. They stopped in front of a heavy steel door with a small window. Inside was the dog. Tan fur, muscular shoulders, scars, dozens of them. He circled the room obsessively, never making eye contact with the staff member, standing behind a mesh partition. Melanie looked at Ethan. "You ready?" He nodded and unhooked Buddy's leash. Buddy didn't hesitate. He walked into the room and sat calm and proud in the corner. The dog stopped pacing, looked up. For the first time in what was likely months, he paused. Buddy didn't approach. He just waited. The dog stared, then growled. A soft, confused growl, not aggression, memory, recognition. Then something clicked. The tan dog walked halfway across the room, sniffed the air, and made a noise almost like a question. Buddy wagged his tail. Once, the tan dog lowered his head. Then slowly he laid down. Everyone watching held their breath. Ethan walked in next. No leash, no hesitation. He walked up beside Buddy, knelt, and placed a hand on the ground. The tan dog inched forward, sniffed Ethan's palm. And then finally, after what felt like hours, he rested his chin in Ethan's lap. They named him Diesel. Melanie said it fit. Tough on the outside, loud when running, but full of power, warmth, and grit. He didn't come home with them that day. He needed medical clearance shots treatment. But he let Buddy visit daily, and within 2 weeks, he allowed Ethan to clip on a leash. 3 weeks later, Diesel was sleeping in the Holloway's garage, his bed right next to Buddy's and Hope's under the window with the morning sun. He didn't bark, didn't make noise. But when Ethan spoke, he always looked up, always listened. One night, Sarah found Ethan sitting in the garage long after bedtime. "Hey, sweetheart," she said. "What are you doing out here?" Ethan didn't look up. "Buddy showed me something." Sarah sat beside him on the old beanbag chair. "He showed me a room with cages. Lots of cages. Diesel was there. So was Hope. But there were more. At least 10. Maybe more." Sarah swallowed hard. "When they was friend of Sarah." Ethan hesitated. "Not here, somewhere hot and dark, like a basement. But they're still there." He turned to her. "We have to help them." They called Dr. Chen the next morning. She believed them. Of course she did. She'd seen what Buddy could do. Dr. Chen sent Ethan's drawings and descriptions to local law enforcement. It took a week, but one officer in Des Moines flagged it as matching an open case suspected illegal animal trafficking, but they lacked evidence. Until now. Ethan's drawings matched the interior of an abandoned bakery 3 blocks from the flagged site. The police raided it the next day. 12 dogs. Caged. Starving. One barely alive. The DA called Sarah personally. "I don't know how your boy does it," she said. "But he saved lives. Again. They didn't foster all the new dogs. That would have been impossible. But they visited everyone. Buddy stayed close to each cage during the first visit. Hope offered gentle nudges. And Diesel began to do what Buddy had once done for him. He waited. He was present. He let them know they weren't alone anymore. A month later, the Holloways added one more feature to their front yard, a wooden sign handcrafted by Michael and painted by Ethan. It read, "UK son, Holloway Haven, where every dog has a name." Underneath were 3 engraved dog tags, Buddy, Hope, Diesel, with room for more. Ethan looked up at his mom one afternoon as they admired it. "You think they'll keep coming?" Sarah smiled, brushing a leaf off his shoulder. "I think the world has a lot of hurting left to do." He nodded. "But I also think we're not done helping." And with Buddy at his side, tail wagging softly, it felt like the line they'd drawn in the sand. The line between cruelty and kindness had become unbreakable. Because when the storm spoke, this family listened. And now, "It's Shawarma," they answered. The morning air was sweet with spring. It smelled like cut grass and cherry blossoms and something else, something alive. The kind of scent that made you believe good things were still possible. Ethan was 7 now, a little taller, a little surer. His front teeth had fallen out. His handwriting had improved. He no longer needed a nightlight, though Buddy still slept at the foot of his bed. Some habits weren't meant to be broken. Hope had grown into herself. Confident and curious, the little white dog now spent her mornings sunbathing in the backyard and her afternoons chasing butterflies she never caught. And Diesel was the muscle. He didn't just protect, he watched. A gentle giant full of loyalty. His past still lingered behind his eyes, but so did something else, peace. Their home, once as just a house at the edge of Maple Street, had become something different. It had become sacred. People started calling it the Haven, First it was the shelter workers, then the volunteers, then the neighbors. A place dogs didn't just pass through but healed in. A place where the broken didn't stay broken. The family never asked for that title. They didn't post on social media. There were no tours or press. But the word spread anyway. Once every few weeks a call would come. A rescue, a recovery, a referral. Sometimes the dogs came with backstories. Sometimes they came with nothing at all. But no matter what, they were received. Buddy always made sure of that. He was older now, his muzzle touched with gray, his steps a little slower. But his presence had only deepened. Stronger than words, larger than commands. He didn't need to bark. He was the voice. That summer, the family made a decision. They were going to build a second doghouse. Not just any doghouse. A proper structure, half shed, half shelter, built by local volunteers with real shingles, a solar light, and walls lined with fleece and blankets. They called it the Doghouse of Dreams. Ethan said it was for the dogs who still had nightmares. It'll help them know they're not in cages anymore, he told Sarah one afternoon. Because dreams are where the pain ends first. Hope curled up next to him on the porch, nose twitching in her sleep. Sarah smiled. I think you're right. It took 2 weekends. Michael led the building crew. Ethan painted the trim white with blue paw prints. Sarah designed a sign to hang above the entrance. You are safe now. Simple, honest. True. When they finished, Buddy was the first to step inside. He circled slowly, sniffed every corner, then laid down with a groan that was half contentment, half old man bones. Hope followed, curling into his side, and Diesel sat just outside the entrance, guarding the door like a knight. No barking, no alarms, just presence. That night, the family hosted their first community candle night. It wasn't meant to be a fundraiser. It wasn't even meant to be an event, but people came. Neighbors, shelter workers, kids, other foster families. They brought blankets, treats, toys. Some brought candles with the names of dogs who never made it out, little flames in memory of those lost before they could be saved. And Ethan, Dursuri to Pee on. He stood in front of the doghouse with Buddy beside him and said just 6 words. They deserve better. Let's give it. Not a dry eye remained. By fall, local shelters began a program modeled after the Holloway's approach. They called it the Buddy Protocol. No cages for the first 72 hours. Pair every new rescue with a companion animal. Play music, read to them, let children visit. Love first, everything else second. It wasn't revolutionary in theory, but it worked. And it started with a storm. A boy, and a dog in need. On Buddy's 8th birthday, Ethan made a scrapbook. The ones who stayed. Each page had a picture of a dog who'd lived with them more than 30 days. Some had been adopted, some still visited, a few never left. Each page had a paw print. And a note from Ethan. He left the last page blank. For whoever comes next, he explained, because there's always one more. In November, Officer Johnson dropped by again. Only this time it wasn't about danger. He brought a framed certificate and a small leather badge. Official K9 Therapy Ambassador Buddy Holloway. He smiled, kneeling down in front of the old shepherd. You never wore the uniform, boy, but you did more good than half the dogs who did. Buddy licked his face and wagged his tail twice, still steady, still proud. That weekend, he began visiting the local children's hospital once a month. Not to perform, just to be. Children lined up just to touch his fur, to whisper secrets into his ear. Sometimes one nurse said they speak more to him than they do to us. Winter returned. So did the storms. And one night, as thunder rolled above their neighborhood, Ethan walked out to the new doghouse with a blanket tucked under his arm. Sarah watched him from the kitchen window. He sat down next to Buddy, now more salt than pepper. You still hear them sometimes, don't you? Ethan whispered. Buddy looked up, and Ethan smiled. It's okay. I still hear them too. He laid down beside him, and the two of them, boy and dog, waited out the storm together. That was the moment Sarah knew Ethan was no longer just a boy with a rescued dog. He was part of something larger. He was the storm's echo, the answer to its cry, the reminder that when the world turns cruel, someone always has the power to turn back. As the final snow melted and daffodils bloomed once more, Ethan walked the yard with Hope and Diesel at his side. He stopped by the sign, where every dog has a name. He traced the letters with his finger, then added a new nameplate to the post. Storm. What's that for? Michael asked from the porch. Ethan smiled. For all the ones who haven't come yet. He looked up at the sky. And the ones we haven't saved yet. Thank you for walking this journey with us. You stayed through every twist, every bark, every storm. You witnessed love rise from hurt, You watched a broken dog teach a broken world what healing could look like. And for that, we're grateful. Before we say goodbye, we want to ask, what did this story stir in you? Did it remind you of a dog you once knew? A moment where love made you brave? A time when someone, human or animal, helped you find your way back? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe in stories like Buddies, consider subscribing to Heroes for Animals, where every tale's true and every hero walks on four paws.